An ordinary day in Prague. A leader the people like has come to power and they think reforms will soften the party dictatorship. For some time, Dubček had begun reforms that would preserve the basic principles of socialism. In April 68, he took the first steps towards a liberalization policy. The policy included various essential measures, such as the liberalization of the press, the diversification of consumer goods, and the establishment of a democratic and multi-party government. It included drafting a federal constitution and recognizing the cultural rights of the people of the Socialist Republic of Czechoslovakia. The Root Pravo Writers' Council announced a renewal of socialism's Met-Socialism Declaration. Socialism with a smiling face was drafted, which means the development of socialism's human face. Socialism realized that human socialism could not be created in the shadow of guns in a party dictatorship. Socialism was to evolve into good times and experience its own changes. But the left fascists didn't allow this. There was a possibility of intervention by the Warsaw Pact led by the Soviet Union, but the regime wouldn't change. Few thought that this intervention could be armed. On August 21, 1968 at around 1 a.m., Czechoslovak radio broadcast a call to the public to listen to the declaration of the Central Committee of the Communist Party. Shortly afterwards, the radio announced that the invasion had begun 2 hours earlier. It reported that tanks from the USSR, the Hungarian People's Republic, the Polish People's Republic, the Bulgarian People's Republic, and the German Democratic Republic had crossed the border. About 7,000 invading tanks crossed the border into Czechoslovakia. The radio repeated that this was an invasion and not a peace operation, and that events were unfolding without the knowledge of the communist leaders of the Socialist Republic of Czechoslovakia. At least some of them. The party called on the entire population to remain calm and quiet for the safety of the people.
Ταινίστε μου τα αρχίδια!
Licht an!
Κομμουνιστής ως το θάνατο.
Feuer!
It was the policy of the Third Reich to put fascists in power in the occupied states and then exploit them. The anti-fascists who fought against Hitler also fought their own nationalists all over Europe. This is why many countries in Europe, like Greece, saw their own nationalists for what they were in those years and witnessed the nationalists supporting the fascist occupation of their countries, while the anti-fascists rebelled against it. This is one of the reasons why the communist and socialist movements in Greece are still strong today. Just like Hitler, the United States took over the governments of the countries it colonized. The bureaucrats of many countries were educated in the United States. Especially the founders of fascist parties have spent time and received training at the CIA and the Pentagon. This same policy of creating satellite states also applied to Soviet Union. In 1945, the USSR liberated Czechoslovakia from Hitler's tyranny and made fascism history. Let's call it fascism of right. But over time, the USSR, like Adolf Hitler, began to exploit these states through parties with their own ideology. It created military dictatorship and under the guise of popular rule. The struggle between the libertarian socialists and the Bolsheviks has occurred almost since its foundation. Antonin Novotny, who became prime minister in 1953, was like the Bolsheviks, a firm believer in military methods and developed secret intelligence organizations. Nevertheless, 1953 there was a significant workers' uprising at the Lenin factories in Pilsen. Some 10 to 15,000 workers took to the streets, although the official number is unknown. Pressed very harshly by the police force, some of the workers were killed. A state that claimed to be a workers' state had suppressed the workers' uprising in a bloody way. However, the people were fed up with the tyranny of the Communist Party, and in January 1968, the Central Committee elected Alexander Dubček as its leader. Moscow was uncomfortable with the situation, but for the time being, it was watching. Dubček restored dignity to some of the political criminals of the Stalin era, including writers, academics, and thinkers. He began to reform the freedom of the press to criticize the party. At the same time, he was preparing steps to liberalize workers' organizations and make them independent of the state to develop socialism, all of which frustrated the Communist Party of the USSR. However, Dubček was very popular with the people. Despite the classic USSR propaganda and labels of revisionists, American agent, and capitalist collaborator, the workers were behind Dubček. The same labeling of terrorist in the capitalist states works in the communist states with the same labeling. Dubček was going to give some of the powers of the presidium of the Communist Party, the high bureaucracy, to the workers' councils and the people. They wouldn't allow it. At around 9 on the night of the August 20 to August 21, Soviet airborne troops landed at Ruzin Airport. A few hours later, a coalition of tanks from other communist states entered Prague. The people of Prague were shocked. Dubček and members of the Presidium were taken from their homes. That same night, witnesses recount that Dubček teary-eyed said the following as he was being taken away: "I have devoted my whole life to communism, and it is the greatest tragedy of my life that the communists did this to me."
Čeka. Ten den měl 47. narozeniny.
That same night, around 3 a.m., a courageous group of academics, writers, and press workers from the Czechoslovak Academy of Sciences gathered and entered the radio stations with technical equipment. They signed an anti-occupation declaration even though they knew they would be arrested. Their aim was to send this declaration to other communist states. However, the parties of these communist states were also involved in the occupation. They made an appeal to the people.
Comrades, we cannot remain silent about the unjust takeover of our country by the occupation armies. We, the Anti-Fascist Fighters Association, will oppose this occupation by
The children of the partisans who had resisted the invasion of the right-wing fascists of the Third Reich in 1939 were trying to fight against the left-wing fascists in 1968. Dubček and his comrades had given them the hope of self-government and democratic socialism. Newspapers and all the ministries were occupied. In addition, a museum about Czechoslovakia's struggle against Hitler was hit by tank fire. Dubček's voices were heard in the streets and group movements were held. On August 21, workers in many factories in and around Prague went on strike and declared their support for Dubček. One of the best answers to the Soviet Union was the strike of Czechoslovakian factories. The Communist Party, which claimed to be a worker state, was getting the answer it needed from the workers. The strike began to spread and workers joined the resistance. On August 23, the name Dubček was seen on every streetcar. Dubček was the name of freedom and resistance against fascism. The shooting of a 16-year-old boy carrying an illustrated youth magazine by the occupiers for refusing to hand it over caused an uproar. The incident quickly spread throughout Prague and then across Europe. Despite the curfew, various groups tried to take to the streets. Young people between 15 and 18 were writing "Get Out" and "Resistance Against Fascism" on the walls. One of these young people was shot at with a machine gun on a tank. A mother with a baby in her arms, who thought she wouldn't be shot at and tried to protect him, was killed in the same condition. During the fighting, 72 Czechoslovakians were killed and hundreds more were injured. As a result of the occupation, around 300,000 people were forced to emigrate to Western countries. Dubček was arrested and exiled to Ankara in 1970. Dubček's reaction and statements prevented armed resistance. Dubček, well versed in Soviet culture, knew the damage resistance could do to his own people. The occupation of Prague profoundly damaged people's ties to communism and hindered the evolution of socialism. The Communist Party dictatorship remains alive for some time. The information in this video is based on 7 Days in Prague by the Historical Institute of the Czechoslovak Academy of Sciences. The book was dubbed the Black Book as soon as it was published. Apart from this book, I also used some political history books. 1968 was a time when the slogan of internationalism reverberated across the globe, and the USSR invasion of Prague shattered the illusion that the Communist Party's propaganda about internationalism was true. Regardless of its professed ideology, the state revealed its true nature as soon as it seized power. This harsh reality was once again laid bare. Thank you for investing your time in this comprehensive video. Your engagement and interest in the topic are greatly appreciated. This is crucial for preserving informative channels and preventing platforms like YouTube from losing their educational value. Thank you all for watching.
La otra noche el río cruzó, ay Carmela, ay Carmela. La otra noche el río cruzó, ay Carmela, ay Carmela. Ya las fuerzas invasoras, ya las fuerzas invasoras.